better, swing better. He can it, swing better. Dane, why am I referencing a Ferris Bueller Day quote?
Not sure.
Oh, I work on many levels, Dane.
Yes,
what were they doing at that particular time? They were at a baseball game, were they not?
It has been so long since I've seen that movie.
They were at a baseball game.
Okay, I could have got that from context.
And why would I reference baseball this week specifically?
Baseball this week, September 1st. Don't know.
You gotta be fucking kidding. We got our second strike.
See.
On YouTube.
See, two off the wall.
That's literally where the 3 strikes you're out policy comes from.
I know, but I'm not
sport.
I'm not tying it to the subject matter.
My God. Okay.
Are we sure it's just our second? I'm pretty sure we've had more than that.
Oh, we've had it appealed. We made them work for it, but they definitely painted the corner on us this week.
Yeah.
Again, another baseball term. I don't want to leave you in the dust.
Yes, I'm with you now.
Okay.
Page, whatever page you're on,
you got
I'm
the
on
eye
it.
grease on?
Yeah.
You got your hamstrings all nice and tight for when you sprint to first base and blow the shits out?
Yeah.
You ready to get paid more than any other athlete other than the fact that you're not as athletic as those people?
Yeah. Ready for all that.
You ready? Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Take it away.
For you fine folks out there,
baseball players,
there's 2 lessons here. First lesson is fuck YouTube. And the second lesson is, this is why getting on our text service at 610-596-WMDP is so important. That's 610-596-9637. As we've reminded you a few times before, that's how you're going to get real-time updates on what's going on with the show. Because you might have checked in this week and you thought, where the hell is my episode 160 on YouTube? Well, you boys are banned from posting on YouTube for a week because they went in the not too far distant archive and they gave us another strike for episode 149. If you weren't here or haven't gone that or don't remember 149, what we talked about in that episode was the Nick Merckx fiasco, where he basically just said, love who you want to love, do what you want to do, but just leave the kids out of it. That's apparently not an opinion you can have on YouTube. We called out Instagram for making it easier for pedophiles to link up with each other and exchange their wares, if you know what I mean. And we thought that was in poor taste from Instagram. We talked about Ukrainian Nazis and that, they should at least have the wherewithal to not wear their paraphernalia when they're getting, puff pieces written about them in the New York Times. And we talked about Trump being arrested again and how all of his people on the other side of the political aisle never seem to get arrested. And I don't know which one of those it was. It was probably the first 2, but it might have been a combination of the first 3. We got a strike for, what was it? Harassment, bullying, something along those lines. Was it that? Mm-hmm. I thought it was harassment. Who knows? It was probably all of it. None of these words mean anything anymore.
Well, it stuck with me because I was like, who did we hate? Who did we elicit violence upon? Who did we call for any harm to be done to? I don't understand what we did. And that's the thing with the YouTube. They don't ever really explain.
No.
And they do all these because we understand that this might come as a bit of a surprise to you. And we understand like that corporate talk. We understand that this is not a good time for you to be told that it's going to cost you another $200 to feed your family each and every month. But Biden economics, they don't care, but they act like they do. And it's just weird where they drew their line in the sand. I'm going to go ahead and assume that we might have said some questionable things when we were discussing pedophiles. But then again, I've ruminated on it since this is about Tuesday when we got the strike, right?
Yeah.
I've been ruminating on it. And I'm like, so you're literally giving us a strike. Like I said, I'm going to assume that it was the pedo part. For being mad that pedophiles were on a site trying to figure out how to harm other children, and this site was making it easier, and you sided with the pedophile to protect them. It's just irony.
Over us potentially saying mean words about the idea of victimizing children.
instead of protecting the children and investigating that website or platform or social media, whatever they want to call it, that's making it easier for predators to engage in their predation. I just find it weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's now again, if you've been a listener of the show for quite a while, you've probably seen where we have gotten strikes in all other instances was related to COVID related topics. And that's why we have the policy that when we talk about those now, we generally, fade out that part. We say, hey, go find it over on Rumble and Odyssey, but we can't play this segment here because YouTube won't let us talk like adults. And we thought that was the, if not the only, it was the primary no topic. And so we've tried to self-censor as much as possible to stay off the radar of our YouTube overlords. But apparently the net is being cast wider, which isn't that every single thing, not just this podcast, but most people have been warning about the slow creep of how this whole censorship thing goes. 5-6 years ago, when Alex Jones got nuked, everybody was like, yeah, he's kind of out there and he says some insensitive stuff, and that Sandy Hook thing, he probably shouldn't have said that. And who cares? It's just Alex Jones. And we didn't have a podcast then, but if we would have said this then, and we've said it since then, and so have many others, is he's where it starts. He's not where it ends. And just like the whole kicking people off of YouTube for saying anything against the establishment narrative about COVID was maybe where it started when they really pulled the gloves off and started censoring and banning channels for that kind of stuff. That ain't where it ends. Now the net is a little bit broader, and apparently it also captures protecting pedophiles from hearing mean words about their predatory behavior. And I mean, other things, but who knows? Well, again, we don't know. YouTube didn't say, here's the line that got you struck, or hell, here's the segment, here's the topic. Nothing. Just, kind of like everything on the left is it's like, if you're winning an argument, they just call you a racist or a fascist, and then they don't have to respond to your point. Same kind of thing. We've struck your episode, and we're banning you from posting for a week because you engaged in harassment, hate speech, whatever. And that's it.
I think this happened when we were going through that earlier too. It happened in bunches, because we had one that we got flagged for. That was our first, don't you do that, you're naughty. And then literally the next week we got flagged again. And then we fought that one off. And then we got flagged again and we fought that one off.
Well, but the reason it happened in bunches is because they found us in one fell swoop. And I think they just did an audit of the whole channel. So they went back, we didn't get successive ones blocked out. They went back in our catalog and found any that we talked about COVID and hit those. So who knows? Maybe they're going to hit any of these topics, but I'll tell you this much, because if you remember the title of 149, we had in the description on there the fact that we were talking about Instagram helping pedophiles and Nazis in Ukraine and stuff. So I'll guarantee you the word pedophile or the word Nazi appearing in the title does make it a little bit easy on them to just say, oh, those are no words, ban. They probably didn't even listen to any of it. No shockers there. So, the fact that we're talking about this now is not going to be in the title. And I guess we'll just find out if they talk about it. Or, if they catch us talking about the no topic and ban this one. But all I know is we had a week ban from posting. So I don't know when this episode will be up on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, you're not hearing this right now, but this is why we encourage you to also follow us on Rumble and Odyssey, where they don't do this stupid shit. But even more importantly than all of that, jump on that text list, 610-596-WMDP, 610-596-9637. Because when we got that ban, that day or the next, we sent out a text to that group saying, this is why you can't see us. We got in trouble for 149 and yada, yada, yada. So if you want real-time updates with the show and what's going on, that's the place to be. Because no matter what platform you happen to listen to us on, we'll be in contact with you quickest through there.
And just to nail in the coffin, this one, just what kind of society are we living in that protects sex offenders and doesn't protect the children?
Yeah.
Anyway.
A collapsing one, I would posit.
Anyway, let's keep voting the two-party system. It seems to be doing great so far. You can't even get a sunburn now.
I can't think of anything I would fix
There's not
in the
one
world today.
thing. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, Kamala Harris, for leading us into the light. Anyway.
Anywho.
Dane, are you ready to have some fun this episode?
I'm composed.
Okay. 4.2 billion. And this lady wants to give it to the government. I think that you could have at least thrown the most baller birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese this world has ever seen. But she wants to give her, with a B, 4.2 billion to the government. It would serve a better purpose just lighting it on fire and warming your hands to it, right?
Listen, let's just say people on the political left, no matter which country they happen to find themselves in, are not sending their best.
Okay, Culture Corner. Oh, Gadsden gaslit by gullible goofs.
I love it. He did that all by himself. He didn't have any help. Almost did it with no hands.
Yep. Telekinesis is a thing. Look it up, kids. All right, Epstein didn't kill himself because... That's right, kids, he didn't. Anyway, 216, not 60, 216 million to sip tea and spill wine.
It's what the French government thinks is a really good use of taxpayer funds.
Okay. And then the main topic has to be McConnell.
What?
Needs to have his hearing checked.
And for you audio-only listeners, no, there's nothing wrong with your speakers or anything else like that. That was part of the shtick. So if you'd like to follow us on those video channels, that one will make more sense to you.
I'm fucking funny, goddammit.
It'll also be, you'll get it when we talk about the topic.
You'll get it.
There's nothing wrong. I know people were like driving it, because this happened to me before a little bit in like audio only. I'm listening to my car. I turn it up. I'm like, what's wrong with my radio? Yeah, so no.
Fucking thing. I knew I shouldn't have upgraded. Like, anyway.
And let this, just so I don't have to ruin David. I did it after the fact, at least, instead of the front. Just so I don't, wet blanket all over David's joke every time. When you hear long pauses, if it extends past 5 minutes, something probably happened with the show.
You know what? Let's
10 to 30 seconds.
If it lasts 2 minutes, don't give it the whole 5 minutes.
10 to 30 seconds. We're probably doing something that makes more sense.
I mean, I'm all for selling a joke. But 2 minutes is a long goddamn time to hold a pause. But anyway, with all that being said, you want to jump in?
Let's do it. Welcome to Weapons and Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 161, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/161. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. And you can get the video on YouTube, I think, Rumble, and Odyssey. And
probably not YouTube for much longer.
Just to remind you, for those of you who skip through the pre-show, don't do that. It's a no-no. Bad listener. Definitely text that automated text service at 610-596-WMDP. That's 610-596-9637. Because you may have noticed we got banned on YouTube again. And if you are on that text service, you will know in real time exactly why and where to find us next.
And again, I'm sorry to all the listeners and viewers. Last week, there's a little bit of a mix-up, and I accidentally sent some dick pics to the goddamn thing. I'm sorry. For those of you that opened it up, it was unintentional, and that was only half flaccid. So if you think that's all I got, you're sorely mistaken.
And for those of you listeners who have kids and are worried about them being on this text service, that was a complete joke, and that did not actually happen, so don't worry.
This is a fun podcast, isn't it? Isn't it, guys? Nice to have a little humor.
Listen, I
let's start a
anticipate.
podcast with a fucking lawyer.
I can anticipate. No, it's not about getting in trouble. It's about expanding our
You don't
listener
think
base.
that our smart little smarty farty listeners can figure out when David's telling a ha-ha?
No, I think one listener.
Maybe a listener would have joined
Hold on.
because they thought they were going to get...
You screwed up. You asked the question and I got to explain it.
God.
I'm
Damn
thinking there's at least a listener out there who's been hearing us admonish them for weeks about not getting on the text service. And then this whole banning thing with YouTube happens and they say, you know what? These guys are right. I probably should get on that. And you know what? I should probably get little Johnny on it too, because, we want to make sure that Johnny's up to date with the show too. But no,
Why would
not
little
if he
Johnny
thinks
want to listen
Johnny's
to politics?
Because-
Little Johnny is watching Minecraft for some reason
Because
still.
little Johnny is a plugged-in kid, okay? He wants to know what's going on in the world because the reins are getting turned over to him in about 10
Well, if he's
to
on
15
Instagram,
years,
all I'm
and it
doing
ain't very
is sending
good.
him what he already sees. Probably a little less aggressively.
True, but not if we have our way.
That was accidental.
And let's move into the show. We are on the meme segment today. We're talking about a German chemical company heiress who maybe she was consuming a little bit too much of her family's company products because she's not working with a lot up here, if you know what I mean. So, name is Suffice Disguise, throwing it up here for you video consumers. And it is an article, which we don't have, we're just going to talk about the tweet about the article. And it says, quote, a 30-year-old woman was left behind with $4.2 billion from her family who founded a chemical company in 1865. And she doesn't want the money. She says, quote, I want it all to be taxed away. I'm annoyed. And,
I'm assuming that's a loose translation.
Well, okay. So she is German, and we will put a link to the article down in the show notes page so you can read more about the story. But basically what happened was this woman, 30 years old, is an heiress to a family that owned a chemical company, and she's getting $4.2 billion. And she used that good fortune, literally and figuratively, to build herself a little soapbox and make it more than just about herself, because we'll get into that here in a second. But she wanted to make it more about herself and wanted to make some sort of protest point that this is an example of what rich people should be like. They should be annoyed with all their money, and they should push very hard for the government to tax. I think the arbitrary percentage she put on it is, I think she wanted like a 90% tax rate. So she wants 90% of her $4.2 billion taken away from her. And which, by the way, she didn't do anything to earn other than be born into the family, but that's neither here nor there. And that's how she thinks the whole world is going to get better. David, what's wrong with that thought process? Anything, or is she just on the money?
Firstly, I hope that soapbox was encrusted in diamonds and that she held a press conference in front of like the entirety of the royal family. With that amount of money.
Is there a royal family in Germany? I don't think so.
I'm saying she flew the royal family over to just listen to her say that.
From other countries?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, from namely
Fair enough.
Britain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if she knows how hard it is out here for a pimp, but things cost money. And when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of freedom, and you don't really know how much, as my father would say, a jar of peanut butter is until you buy it yourself, you know? And I'm going to go ahead and assume that this lady, if that's what she identifies as, I'm assuming, I'm going to go ahead and assume she doesn't even do her own shopping. Not with $4.2 billion. You know what I would do with $4.2 billion and a chemical plant, right?
I mean, a chemical company, I don't know if they still do that, or I don't know. I have no idea about the families.
Suffice to say, I'd have a butler named Alfred. Lucius Fox would be helping me with my spelunking, and I might have to adopt a voice like this and hide in the shadows so the criminals don't see me coming. She should be Batman or Batwoman or Batgirl, whatever the fuck she wants to be. Is all I'm saying. $4.2 billion. Is the government gonna make a Batman? No. They've had trillions of dollars and still haven't made a Batman yet.
I know, kind of useless.
They've made a Batman and Hunter.
Which, speaking about uselessness,
you don't say me.
And the reason why I made the dig at her about, maybe consuming some of her family's chemicals for sustenance because she's fried a couple brain cells, apparently. If she thinks the best use of that 4.2 billion or 90% of it or whatever arbitrary percentage she wants to put on it is for that money to first flow through the hands of government, who I think we have a fair amount of historical reference to point to say that of all institutions or groups of people in society that seem to be
trusted with money,
that seem to be the best stewards of resources, wherever that list goes down to, the government is not even on that list. There's no one worse at marshaling resources for any potential, any public good, anything of value to the rest of humanity than government.
It's like heroin addicts.
If she was really not just some pontificating, brain dead leftist that wanted to make some point against, evil rich millionaires and billionaires, to quote Bernie, then what she would do is she would take that 4.2 billion and she would just, pick whatever charity she wants. Maybe she'd throw some money at the World Health Organization because she thought they handled COVID so well. Or maybe she'd throw a few $100 million at Greta Thunberg to, fly around the world and lecture people about fossil fuels. Or, she could just throw that money out to whatever cause she wants. There's nothing stopping her. Nothing stopping her from giving it to all of the causes that she finds important. But yet, she thinks it's smarter to have that money flow through government before it gets to ultimately where she wants to go. And another thing is, for all the people that think like this, they tend to be, using American corollaries, they tend to be the same kind of people that say when a Donald Trump gets elected that fascism has come to America and democracy is destroyed. But once she turns that money over to her overlords in government, and she doesn't stop a Trump-esque type person being elected to lead the show in Germany, she just funded fascism. Well, that doesn't seem very bright. But yet, again, only the government should have these resources because they're so good at being good stewards of those resources.
Dane,
they don't listen to themselves talk.
You worry too much. It's not like Germany has ever had a fascistic dictator that was, trying to take over the world.
It would be an
Calm
anomaly.
the fuck down, all right? Nothing bad has ever happened over there.
Ever.
Definitely nothing like it. It's a good thing we were still waiting on World War I. Anyway, are we on to Gadsden?
We are.
Okay. So Culture Corner. Gadsden gaslit by gullible goofs. Just wanted to say it one more time.
He did. He was really proud of that one.
I wasn't that proud. I mean,
he was so proud of it, he didn't even want to tell me what it was and wanted to let me.
All right, fine. I put it up on the refrigerator. What do you want? Keep going.
So this story has been all over the news. I know we like to pride ourselves on this podcast of kind of bringing you stories that are a little more off the beaten path because you could tune into any mainstream channel and get stories like this. But this one, we had our own angle and we couldn't let it go uncommented on because we are who we are.
And because of certain reasons.
Yes. So, but if you haven't heard, there was a young boy, I want to say 12 years old, named Jaden, who goes to school in I think it was Colorado. Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And as kids are wont to do these days, sometimes they put, patches on their backpacks for all number of things, Pokemon patches and, in this case, political patches, their favorite football team.
Vietnam veteran.
Anything, right? And this kid, Jaden, decided to put the Gadsden flag on his bag. And for our Australian listeners or anybody outside the United States who maybe aren't familiar with what the Gadsden flag is, although we will get to in a second, that it does have a little bit more reach than just within the continental United States. The Gadsden flag, or at least funny little take on it is right behind David. The Gadsden flag itself, if David could scoot out of the way just a little bit, does not have Beavis on it. It is just the snake, and then it says, "Don't tread on me" on the real Gadsden flag.
Are you threatening me?
Not "Are you threatening me?" But David's is funny. We like it. That's why it's on that. That flag encapsulates David very well. But the Gadsden flag, according to one of the school administrators for Jaden, is she took him out of class and said, "You cannot return to class. And if you refuse to take the Gadsden flag patch off of your backpack, we will not let you return to class." And notwithstanding the fact that that's a direct violation of First Amendment right to freedom of speech, and this precise issue has been settled by the Supreme Court for a very long time. Not that they're the arbiters of all rights and privileges, but on this one, they have spoken, and it's clear that you can't do this. That's what she decided to do. And what's especially commentable, worth comment on this story, is the fact that the reason why she said you can't have that flag is because that flag is associated with slavery. Now, first point to comment on. This is somebody in
This is a teacher.
This is an educational setting. This is somebody who's trusted to form the young minds of tomorrow. And she thinks the Gadsden flag is all about slavery. David? Keeping with the theme of not sending their best and brightest, how are the public school teachers here in the U.S.? Are they sending their best and brightest?
Wouldn't know. Wasn't so privy to their wares. But no, I again, this isn't a besmirchment of all teachers. It's just like everything else. There's a nice little bell curve, and most of them are right there in the middle, and they're doing exactly what they want, and so on and so forth. We've established that. Now, that being said, it's just interesting that a teacher, despite being first grade and all that, I'm assuming she had to be at least a master's or graduate college to be able to teach that, right?
For that grade, I think maybe a master's for high school, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I think she was an administrator.
She's been educated.
So.
You have to be educated. You can't just walk in on something and just start teaching.
Allegedly.
Well,
that is kind of one of the myths.
Educated, indoctrinated, yada, yada, yada.
Yes, fine. That's one of the myths that the public school system is predicated upon, is that. And then they say that you hear them say this all the time when they talk about things like homeschool. How dare you parents try to pretend like you can teach kids better than us? We are trained educators. We know all the stuff. We've got all the special secret tools and we know all the secret things to say to get kids to learn stuff. Definitely not propagandize them to learn the things that we want them to learn and not the things that we don't. But just the way to just teach in general. That's the
But I
underlying
believe this
premise.
is more of a militia flag, right? If I'm not mistaken. It had nothing to do with slavery.
Exactly, it did not. And I'm just going to read a short excerpt because, I don't want to miss some of the little details of it. But its origin is in the American Revolution. And then we're going to get to our point on why this flag is universally targeted by people generally on the left or anybody else that supports the regime. So here's what the flag really is. And again, this is 5 seconds. This teacher could have went on where I got this from is the Encyclopedia Britannica website about the Gadsden flag. And here's what it has to say, quote, "The flag is named for Christopher Gadsden, a South Carolina delegate to the Continental Congress and brigadier general in the Continental Army, who designed the flag in 1775 during the American Revolution. He gave the flag to Commodore S. Hopkins, and it was unfurled on the main mast of Hopkins' flagship, the USS Alfred, on December 20th, 1775. 2 days later, Congress made Hopkins Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Navy. He adopted the Gadsden banner as his personal flag, flying it from the main mast of the flagship while he was aboard. The Continental Marines also flew the flag during the early part of the war." And if you're wondering where the snake itself comes from, many of you may, Americans may remember this from your American history class. There was a very famous comic published by Benjamin Franklin where there was a snake cut up into parts, and each one of the parts had like New York, Massachusetts, Virginia, etc. And the purpose of the comic, why Ben Franklin had published it, was that just like the snake would die if you cut it apart, if the individual colonies did not come together as one, they would eventually be overcome. So the idea is strength through unity. And so the reason why the snake is on the flag and why it says, "Don't tread on me," right? Because the American Revolution was fought over being tread upon. And so the snake became a symbol for that, and coming together and working together to throw off the shackles of the British Empire. That's what it is. That's what the symbol stands for. It stands for a revolt against tyranny. It stands for freedom. It stands for liberty, broadly and generally speaking. It stands for the idea of civil liberties being in the hands of the people, not in the hands of their overlords, et cetera, et cetera. Not a damn thing to do with the institution of slavery. Just putting that out there for any teachers in the United States that still don't know that.
You know what, Dane? With all that rambling being said, I think we missed our calling. We shouldn't be humble podcast hosts. We should be first grade teachers. You know, raking in the millions of dollars that they make each and every year, just bestowing all of this knowledge upon young children. And with that, you should join the text message thread. The children should. Now that we've figured out all those personal photos getting ixnayed from the thread. So now it's a safe space for young, little, revolutionary-minded first graders that know about the Gadsden Flag now.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else, Dave?
Oh, just wanted to close the loop on that about it going global. It has now been adopted and used by different groups for just that very purpose, about liberty all over the place. And one interesting thing I saw recently is a lot of supporters of our new favorite boy, Javier Milei in Argentina, have been using Gadsden flags at some of his speeches and stuff like that because, again,
it's a good goddamn flag.
The Argentinians voting for Javier Milei are not voting for slavery to come back. They're voting for quite the opposite. They're voting for liberty and freedom and all of the things that the flag actually stands for. So, just a little factoid there for you that, there's probably some Argentinian listeners to this podcast who knew better than a grade school teacher in the United States about the history of our country.
And just as a rule of thumb, don't let your political views kick a 7th grade or a 7-year-old out of your class.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just an idea. Or are the unalienable human rights, do you have to grow into those? Like, do they take hold in puberty? Because maybe he just wasn't mature enough to have all of his rights yet.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the way she thinks about it. Because I'm sure that's what Rachel Maddow told her on MSNBC. But there's some important people who kicked that whole thing off, that Revolutionary War we're talking about, had this concept of inalienable rights, that you're born with them from God. So again, I wouldn't expect her to know that either. I'm just, just throwing that out there. For anybody else who doesn't know. Maybe we have some middle school teachers watching the show and they're learning this for the first time.
Leave those kids alone.
We're doing our duty to make sure that you're teaching the kids correctly.
We're just... Okay, anyway. Epstein didn't kill himself. Dane, $216 million to sip tea and spill wine. What the is that the new phrase of 2023 hashtag sip tea and spill wine? Can we get that? Can we get
I think you can get that started and we'll see how far it goes.
Hashtag sip tea, spill wine, bitch. What's up? Where my brunch hats at, yo?
We put that on a shirt. You gonna wear that one?
Put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt at the merch store. Go check that out. It's in the comments below. Buy some stuff. We like you. And you'll like it.
And after that unadulterated capitalism at heart, Dane, what the hell do I mean? So we have an article here that says about the French government is spending 216, not 260, because I did say that earlier. The French government spending $216 million to destroy 80 million gallons of surplus wine. Now, I know some of you are thinking right off the top, why the hell would you need to spend $216 million to destroy wine? Can't you just
hire some high schoolers, $5 an hour to just pop the top and pour it.
Pay one guy $1 million to dump it all out. You want to be a millionaire?
I'll take that job.
I'll fucking take it right now.
Yeah. But no, what the French government is doing is they're paying wine growers in France, primarily in the Bordeaux region, $216 million to take 80 million gallons of wine that they have produced so that they can just go ahead and dump it.
Come again, Dane? You said they're dumping out perfectly fine alcohol?
Yes. Yeah.
Leave it to the French. Leave it to the fucking French.
Well, I mean, and circling back to the meme segment, this is, if she wants, in her infinite wisdom, all of her money to flow through the government first, this is one of the things that it's going to go to. Not to feeding the homeless or, making sure the international socialist man is brought together in solidarity as they bring down the rich. No, it's going to go to destroy perfectly good resources that could have gone to people for free.
I'm trying to figure out how the hell it takes $216 million to destroy that wine when you could just have a careless truck driver just.
Yeah. Well, it's because they are propping up the wine growers.
Now, why would they do that? How? By destroying wine, they're helping the wine growers? Dane, make this make sense.
Yes. So I'm going to read a couple paragraphs from the article, which again, you can read for yourself in total by going down into the comment section or the show notes page on the website. And here's the rationale in their infinite wisdom in government. Quote, from the article, French wine producers are getting bailed out after being hammered by a confluence of difficulties, including overproduction, inflation, skyrocketing costs, and changing drinking habits among French citizens opting for other beverage choices in a hyper-competitive environment. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has also disrupted shipments of fertilizer and bottles, while climate change is wreaking havoc on growers who must contend with extreme weather.
Blow me, Martha.
So when you hear that long list of excuses, unless you're paying attention or you're a regular listener of this podcast, and so you've already spotted them on your own, do you hear anything in there that signals the real cause of this problem, the government itself, and that after causing the problem, the only thing government can do in a very much, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of fashion, is that after they cause a problem, their only solution is to literally cause a bigger problem or just waste resources by not fixing the problem, right? So in that list of examples,
I spilled milk, so let's burn down the house. They'll never know it was me.
The fire will certainly dry the milk up off the floor. That's
damn
for sure.
right.
Those first two couple examples, overproduction and inflation. Why did those things happen? Well, all the cheap money printing that happened all throughout COVID. Completely the government's fault. But again, no mention that the government did that. It's just that it happened. And that has now put the wine growers in a bind. And so the government needs to buy their wine from them so that they can't allow the supply to go onto the market and depress the purchase price of wine, right? Basic supply and demand. So government says, I'm going to take it from you and destroy it to make sure that surplus wine never makes it to market.
Or they could just buy it and give it to people for free saying, hey, sorry, we fucked up. That would be a way better use than just going. But it always reminds me of that clip from Family Guy. You remember when Lois was running for office?
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, what would your idea for fixing the economy be? 9/11. And all the people, oh. And then, oh, okay, that's fine. But how would you restore jobs to the American people? 9/11. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it goes down the list and she just goes 9. They go, 11. Yeah. And then they all start clapping. It's I feel like that's what global warming is. The economy's down, global warming. Man, yep. I tell you what. Oh, you're getting sunburned? Global warming. Oh, you're freezing to death? Global warming. It's not our fault that we fucked up and our oil reserves were a little more expensive than we thought. We ran short. And oh, by the way, when Florida was about to be hit by a hurricane, we accidentally let a little diesel get in with the actual gasoline. So the people that were trying to run from the hurricane might have ruined their cars in the process, making their lives innumerably more difficult. Fucking global warming. Came down and switched the cans on us. The old switcheroo. God damn it, global warming, you meddling son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, so overproduction, inflation, skyrocketing costs, all of that at the fault of government. This one in the middle, not necessarily the fault of government, but again, this is not something that needs to be fixed with policy or otherwise. The changing drinking habits among fringe citizens. Who fucking cares? That is the point of entrepreneurship. The winemakers, as entrepreneurs, are supposed to anticipate the market preferences of their consumers and then allocate their resources accordingly to make sure that they fulfill those preferences.
Or maybe call Bud Light and ask them about people changing their drinking preferences. Get some insights.
And as an entrepreneur, if you misallocate your resources or you don't effectively anticipate the market, then you lose resources because you lost money, because you didn't predict correctly. And that's how, in a free market, how resources flow to their most effective, most efficient use. Because the people that don't prove good stewards of those resources get less of them. And the people that do prove good stewards get more. That's how the free market works. Not when the government's involved. We got to make sure that if people are changing their drinking habits, we prop up those people who were irresponsible with their resources and overproduced or produced a good that the market didn't voluntarily want.
It's a good thing that this is the only thing that the government has ever done in that regard, too.
The only thing they ever screw up.
Yeah.
Right.
Not paying off student loan debt for people that really, really appreciated it.
Yeah. Next thing on the list, Russian invasion of Ukraine. That also disrupted shipments of fertilizers and bottles.
Son of a bitch, Russia.
Again, not that France is in particular the biggest cause of this, but it is a member nation of NATO, and that is really what Ukraine is all about. It's about NATO encroachment on the doorstep of Russia, and France, last time I checked, isn't exactly objecting to the direction that the United States, which is really NATO. The rest of them are just like satellite states. France isn't really objecting to that. So to any extent that France plays into that to encourage the starting of the war in Ukraine and then prolonging it once it started, again, fault of government. And then the last one, like David was talking about, climate change. That's the catch-all for everything, because what does it do? It allows them to escape accountability. For example, the fires in Maui. Rather than calling to account the fact that the electric company didn't maintain some branches, that they had an official who delayed the use of water to put out the fires out of principles of equity, it wasn't fair. We got to protect the water resources. And the fact that the government stopped resources from getting in and stopped people in harm's way from getting out. None of those things are talked about in the Maui wildfire because, don't you know, this wildfire was exclusively the cause of climate change. And so it really is their catch-all. None of their other policies that cause these problems are ever put under the microscope because, well, don't you know, it's just climate change.
Well, and
that's how they operate. No accountability.
You're also not allowed to question authority anymore. And that little nugget kicked off right around 2020. And if you even think to question anything that happens nowadays, you get shouted down immediately as an unintelligible person. You're probably with the orange man and you want this world, you want democracy to fail. It's like, when did it become not okay to question authority? When did it become not your default to question anything somebody else? That should be the first thing that you should ask. If some guy walks into your bedroom and goes, "Get up," like, I'm going to have some questions. First of all, who let you in? Secondly, why are you so handsome? Thirdly, I don't have pants on. You can turn around or not if you don't want to. Those are my 3 questions. But those are just 3 questions right off the top of my head. I just woke up, Dane. I could probably think, hey, who is this person? That would probably be 4th. And then, like, I really wish you would turn around. Number 5, that's more of a statement, less of a question. And you see where I'm saying, like, I'm working down a process. There doesn't seem to be any process anymore. It's just, okay, I do that. I get another shot for something. Okay, I yell at this person for voting for this person because he's not the person that you told me I need to vote for. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, just start thinking again. When did it become not cool to question? Let's make questioning cool.
Is that your best on the spot French impression, or?
Oh, you want me to go French?
Yeah.
No, well, shit. I don't. Oui, mon chéri, s'il vous plaît. Oh yes, we need to question these people more. They have too much of a run of the mill. They dump out all of our wine. This is bullshit. I don't wear deodorant. It stinks up my pits. They pour.
I like it. It's good. Although I'm going to find myself in France in a few months, so I should probably, not make myself a target.
Don't let anyone steal your underpants.
I will not. Pantless.
Don't even wear pants.
Don't even need them.
Don't.
Free balling. Anyway.
Great song.
I know. So the Epstein moment on this segment is, if you think that this is just some French anomaly and that those silly, snail eaters over there just kind of screwed things up and they're over in Paris. I think snails too. Escargot, bro.
No, they eat some weird shit.
Snails, frogs.
They literally, sous vide is just you're cooking in a plastic bag. Have you heard?
You know what pate is?
Mm-hmm. Liver pate?
Don't look it up.
Had a little bit of that. I couldn't scratch it off my tongue. Like, it just stinks.
You had it?
Yeah.
It's gross. Don't do that.
We won't tell anybody where I got it from, but the liver pate, it just like bleh, sat on you.
Yeah.
Take me like a couple of days to
anyway.
Scratch it off.
French cuisine is weird.
Their baguettes, though.
Pretty fire.
Their baked goods cannot be fucked with.
Off the charts.
Like okay. Not to diverge too much.
We've already diverged.
Okay, fuck it. So let's continue to. So why would they stop at dumping out wine? Just start like throwing bags of fucking croissants out onto the ground and like, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like you could have done more with it, but in a stereotypical government fashion. Like, you don't have to destroy the wine. Buy it if that's really what you want to do, and then give it out. But that would still hurt the market, because if you give it out,
because it's supply that's out there. Anybody that you're giving it to is not going to buy wine. That is what they want to do to prop up the
Sophie's
farmers.
Choice.
Yeah,
over here.
So if you're wondering, I know what you're thinking to get to the Epstein segment. You're
French
thinking
food is gross.
You're thinking this is, in addition to just being stupid in its own right, the timing is poor. Right? We're in, if not already in, we're on the verge of a global recession. Right?
I see what you did there.
What?
The timing is poor. Global recession.
Nice.
You didn't even know.
Is the timing is really poor because people could use could benefit from a little bit cheaper goods and services at a time of high inflation and, in a recessionary environment and all that kind of stuff. And why would government pick now to do something like that? Well, as I was saying before, this is not a French anomaly. There is an American corollary here in the United States. And it also happened at one of the worst times, lowest times for the general public in American history. I'm going to read a short little passage from a Mises.org article about the Great Depression. Just one quick paragraph. But just to kind of remind you, or, if you happen to be educated by the same types of teachers that educated poor Jaden over there in Colorado Springs, you've probably never heard of this at all. But it has echoes throughout history, and we should learn from it to not let these morons do exactly what they're doing in France today. So the article about what FDR did during the Great Depression in very similar fashion, quote, he attacked the problem of falling commodity prices with the passage of the Farm Relief and Inflation Act. Again, farm relief. It's going to do the exact opposite of what it's supposed to do. In the height of the Depression, he passed the Farm Relief and Inflation Act, properly known as the First Agricultural Adjustment Act. The objective was to raise farm income by cutting the acreages planted or destroying the crops in the field, paying the farmers not to plant anything, and organizing market agreements to improve distribution. The program soon covered not only cotton, but also all basic cereal and meat production, as well as principal cash crops. The expenses of the program were to be covered by a new, quote, processing tax levied on an already depressed industry. So, the farm industry struggling. You have massive unemployment. People are waiting in bread lines in American cities throughout the country. Food is not cheap enough for all of the people that aren't earning money to be able to afford it. And so what does government do at that moment in time in its infinite wisdom? It destroys food. It taxes the farmers that are already hurting even more in order to force the destruction of the food. It limits the planting of acreages. It tells certain farmers, hey, you wanted to plant that crop this year? You can't because we got too much on the market. It does every single thing. Again, this is the whole stupid evil thing. If it was pure stupidity, if occasionally they would do the right thing just on accident. You cannot get that many things wrong from a policy perspective at the height of a depression, at maximum unemployment, where people are literally starving and you're destroying food because you want to artificially keep the prices of the food more expensive. But that's what FDR did at the height of the depression. And if France had learned anything from that historical experience, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing today. And yet here we are. But not you, listener or viewer of WMD Podcast. You'll never make that mistake because not only have you learned the lesson of history here in the United States, you're seeing it play out in France today, and probably there are examples in your own countries, wherever you're tuning in from, that have done that both in the past and currently. So don't let them get away with it. Epstein didn't kill himself. This isn't the first time government has royally fucked up in a really bad time, and it won't be the last.
Okay.
Got it?
Epstein didn't kill himself.
Did not do it.
All right. On to the main, Brother Maynard. It's the McConnell conundrum.
Oh, Mitch.
Do you want to just have a couple of moments of silence for him?
He's had plenty for himself.
I think he took all of them.
He did.
I think he took all of them. Oh, poor little If he wasn't such a piece of shit, you would almost feel bad for him.
That's the point.
You'd almost feel bad for him.
That's the entire point I wanted to make in this segment.
So we'll see you next week on Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast. Because hanging out with you, Dan, I'm going to take off now. I'm still here, guys, if you're just audio only.
So Mitch this week had another, what's that? What's that little thing that pops up on your screen
Error
when it's like when your computer's going to shut down? Yeah.
404. Error message 404.
Yeah, McConnell file not found again this week. He did this about a month or maybe 2 months ago where he was giving a speech in the Senate.
Franklin the Turtle.
Talking to reporters, and then he just like zones out and stares off into oblivion. And people thought, yeah, he's old. It happens. Whatever. It's a one-off.
It's not supposed to.
1 or 2 months later, just this very week, the exact same thing happens again. He wasn't in the Senate this week. He was it looked like a town hall, maybe back home in Kentucky or something like that. But he was asked a question. The funny thing is, the question was asking him about, whether he was going to run again, and just completely shuts down. Brain turns off, and he stares in silence for 10 to 20 seconds.
He's not there anymore.
No, he is not.
It's safe to say he Bidens a little bit.
Which makes you ask the question, a man of his power and his position,
not being of sound mind,
he doesn't have everything there to be truly calling the shots. So who is?
Who was the other one too that just gave
Dianne Feinstein?
That's it. That gave what is it? The Britney Spears law to her daughter to take care of all of her finances and all of her health decisions, but she's still staying in the seat.
She gave power of attorney to her daughter to make her personal decisions, but she's going to legislate on behalf of 330 million of us.
You can't balance your
sense.
checkbook, i.e., it's a fucking app. It does it for you anyway. But you're so gone, you can't even figure that shit out. But you're going to be voting on policies that predicate my life?
Yeah.
Where's the reality? When does reality kick back in here?
Listen.
God damn it. But he just has a stutter. And the white kids are just as smart the black kids are just as smart as white kids, and I'm not racist, but she sure does have fat ass. And I'm back. Like, that's not a stutter. That you're just fucking insane, and your brain isn't working. Go take a nap.
Yeah. And, David kind of made the point that I wanted to make at the very beginning, which was, I know what some of you, well, probably not our listeners, they know us well enough to know that we are generally of goodwill. Yes, we have our enemies and we'll speak out vociferously against them, but we're not intentionally mean just for no reason. But some people will dismiss our point here and say, how dare you? He's somebody's grandpa and he's this, that, and whatever and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's killed a lot of people's grandpas too. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
And fathers. That might be fine as far as it goes. But here's the point. He's not just somebody's grandpa. He's not just somebody who, nearing the end of his life is starting to slip mentally and all of that kind of stuff, to which, all the pity in the world is deserved. He's somebody who, in light of that, refuses to let go of political power and what he does with that power. Again, refer back to Oliver Anthony about really targeting the problem of what's wrong with these people in DC that do that kind of stuff. So any sympathy or pity he might be entitled to as just an aging man who, is starting to slip a little bit and wouldn't it be nice if he could be made comfortable and all of that kind of stuff that we would wish for anybody's grandpa, of course. But if in light of that, you stubbornly refuse to let go of power and you use it in a way that enriches you, your crony buddies, at the expense of the rest of us, all the pity and sympathy you might have been entitled to is out the window, because that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable not only for you to stay in that position, but to act the way that you do in that position in your lucid moments. Maybe if you just sat at your desk and stared off into oblivion all day, that would even be better, because at least you're not spending your time enriching your cronies at the expense of the rest of us. That would be better. But in your lucid moments, it's actually where you're the worst. And that's why you don't get any sympathy in moments like this, or deserve it.
You know what, Dane? I think there's another option here that we haven't discussed.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring it to you here live. First time we're hearing it. I think he was just trying to remember all the rules of Fight Club. He's sitting there going, first rule of Fight Club is don't mention Fight Club. Second rule of Fight Club, don't mention Fight Club. What's the other one? He looks down. If someone says stop, goes limp, taps out, the fight's over. And shit, was it the next one? And then didn't his handler come in and go, did you hear him right? It's like, no, of course not, bitch. I look around and see a lot of new faces. I don't know what any of these people are. They're breaking the first true rules of Fight Club. And scene. So anyway, I brought that up so that you could mention the fact that while this is happening, the handler tries to make it seem like something else is going on.
Yeah, the gaslighting is particularly egregious, because after he stands there for about 10 or 15 seconds with her at his side saying, did you hear the question? Did you hear the question? As if that's the reason he's staring off into space, is because and David made a good point when we talked about this earlier, said, well, if you didn't hear the question, you saw the guy's lips move, so you say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Can you ask it again? But that's not what he did, because that wasn't the problem. But as she's shuffling McConnell off, she says out to the crowd, as if to cast blame on them for this. When you ask the question, can you please speak up and da-da-da-da-da, like to blame them for him just completely error coding. And
how many press conferences has he had over his millions of years in office?
Couldn't even count them, probably.
And he's never said, hey, I didn't hear that once.
Except for a month or so ago.
This is the first time he's never heard of the phrase, come again.
Yeah, exactly.
God knows his wife hasn't ever said that. Hi-oh! Anyway, sorry.
So yeah, I mean, again, par for the course from government. And when I asked the question, partially rhetorically, is if he's not all there to actually be the one running the show for his office, who is, I bet it's her and the people around him. And did you, democracy is sacred people, did you get an opportunity to vote for her? or the other handlers that are doing everything for him? Did you? Is democracy really, really in secure hands as far as you're concerned? Because to answer that question for McConnell from the reporter of
He answered it technically.
Are you going to run again?
He technically answered it.
I'll bet you dollars to donuts he does.
Well, if he's upright, I think it's
Does it seem to matter?
I think it's still like fucking vampire him up out of that goddamn bed in the morning and just like they'll probably put him on like one of those little like those little dollies and just like scooter him around. That's what they would want. That's what it's going to turn into. The Senate and the House and the presidency is all just going to be them scuttling around corpses and skeletal figures and moving their jaw. Yes, I believe we should sign this amendment. Like,
yeah, I posit to you, it doesn't matter. I'll bet Feinstein runs again. I'll bet he runs again. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I think Feinstein said that she's not going to run again. But I mean, hell, Pennsylvania just elected John Fetterman. That guy can't even dress himself. So, I mean, and they try to chalk up all his stuff to a speech impediment too. I was watching him the other day, not to tangent here too much. I just wanted to make this point to the people that, Fetterman, he just has a speech impediment. He's reading from a sheet. So I'm going to, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should not expect for senators of the United States
leaders of the free
to
world
be able to read off of a piece of paper. He's reading from the paper. And he's not stuttering through reading the paper. It's not like the words keep coming out, but he just has like a speech impediment that keeps messing it up. He can't form the sentences coherently out of his mouth that his eyes are seeing on the paper. That's not speaking off the cuff spontaneously, where sometimes you trip over your words and issues like that. You have a stutter or whatever. He's reading. He can't read off the paper. Now, that's not to say that Fetterman can't read pyramid, but if there's something going on up here that you can't take the symbols that make letters and form words to express a coherent thought, you don't have a speech impediment. You are not right in the head, and you shouldn't be legislating for 330 million people. Seems like a low bar, but that's where we are.
You shouldn't even be passing first grade to take it all the way back to our first initiative.
As a matter of fact, that teacher could probably teach Fetterman a thing or two. She's not teaching Jaden anything.
Not about the Gadsden Flag, but everything else, though. She might have a good head on her shoulders for all that other stuff,
Yeah, basic reading.
A-E-I-O-U, Y2. Anyway, so I think that's a weird question. How much of our gubernatorial body in the United States Senate, House, and executive branch.
Senate and House are both legislative.
And the executive branch. I said, and the executive branch.
So
I'm aware that they're
keeping out the judicial.
Well, I guess we could, I mean, aren't judges usually older too? So fuck it. How many people in our government, good point, Dave. How many people in our government wouldn't pass first grade anymore?
Probably a fair amount.
Yet they're telling us all the things that we need to be doing with our lives.
Yeah. They're legislating things as complex as cryptocurrency.
Yes. And
AI. They're going to save us from AI.
They're legislating social media. And have you handed your Nana a fucking tablet with your Facebook on it lately? Gonna tell you, might not want to do it. It's gonna be different when she hands it back to you. I'm not Stan Lee. What the fuck did you do? Anyway.
I mean, sometimes you just got to laugh to keep from crying, don't you, folks?
It does. Oh, shit.
Which is why you tune into this podcast.
And speaking of this podcast, Dane, where can they find this episode 161? On YouTube this week? Question mark?
That's a good question. So I'm pretty sure our ban went into effect on Tuesday, and our episodes usually drop around Wednesday, Thursday. So if it was only a week, then you should be able to be seeing this on YouTube. And if you're not hearing me right now, then obviously I was wrong. But on all those other platforms, you are hearing this, and you can go tell all your friends that watch on YouTube. Right. You can tell them, go to this other platform. They're still in the doghouse on YouTube. So they can find this episode at wndpodcast.com/161. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, again, we think, Rumble, and Odyssey. So again, if you are a YouTube listener and you missed your episode last week and you're back this week, let that be a lesson to you. Go over to Odyssey and Rumble, like and subscribe and share over there so that when you log into your YouTube one week and you're like, where are the boys? And we ain't there. And if you're not on the text list to know why we're not there,
we up out of here.
then you go over to Rumble and Odyssey. But anyway, you can also find us on Twitter. X. Instagram.
How many people are actually calling it X nowadays?
Like
they still say a tweet.
Yeah,
you still tweet on X, so it's like
I know.
I X'd on X. What?
Listen, I'm gonna do both. I'm gonna say Twitter and X.
Just say it
until a critical mass are just saying X.
We have to reach like a hive mind thing.
Yeah,
be able to move on.
Well, I mean, because we got to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. Anyway, so those places you can also link up with us on our private members only Facebook page. Just support the podcast at $5 a month or more of support over there, and we will let you in. You can also find us on Tribel, but not Float because it doesn't exist anymore. And I believe that's all the social medias. But definitely, website, homepage. Join on that email list. That's another way to get updates about the show and make sure you don't lose contact with us if we get nuked from your favorite platform. Join that automated text service at 610-596-WMDP. That's 610-596-WMDP. Or sorry, I already said that. 610-596-9637. Text that number, your name. Hey, how are you? David, your hair looks great. Dane, you're beautiful, but your glasses are crooked. Any number of things.
No illicit photos will befall you. I promise. Figured it out.
By texting that number, you'll be on the list and you'll get real-time, up-to-date information from the show. And in the future, you'll get discount codes on merchandise and stuff like that, which, by the way, while I'm on that, go to the merch store and help support us that way. Go to the link under this video. You can see our Bitcoin wallet if you want to donate Bitcoin to us. You can donate to us on a monthly basis, on a one-time basis. Just go over to the Support Our Work tab on the website to do that. You can also just do this free stuff. Like, subscribe, share the videos and the audio wherever you see it.
Kidnap somebody, tie them up in your basement, and make them watch all of our episodes.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes.
It's pretty legal for the most part.
Pretty sure that's all the ways you can help the show. You've been doing it already. We've been having some growth,
sizable growth
going here. And with your help, we can be the best. But we need your help.
Maybe we'll share some of that growth on the text. No, not again. Sorry. Not again. Never again.
Yeah.
But all that being said.
All of that being said.
Memes, you know the drill. Stay safe. But more importantly, stay free.